Hello, I'm Miles, and welcome to another edition of Pickleball Builders. Today I have actually a friend of mine, Chuck Groder, and the reason why, so we're just a little bit of background. We're in the same, we're both in a business mastermind group called Catalyst, and so that's how we've known each other for years. And every month that we meet, we have a little talk a little bit about our month. And in Chuck's intro, I remember you saying yeah, I played pickleball. And I'm like, wait, without me? And so I was really excited, because you'd been talking about it and, you're just barely, kind of just starting your journey with the game of pickleball. So I thought it'd be really fun to have you on the show and just kind of talk about it. So do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. My name's Chuck Groder. I have a couple of businesses. I have a web development business and a business that does online promotions like sweepstakes and contests and games. And so that's the business that I come to this group with. And in the group, for many months, I'd been threatening to play pickleball. One of the things we kind of check in with each other on is health. And so I wanted a fun way to be healthier.
Yeah.
So for many months I was threatening, and finally I actually did it, which is what caught your attention.
Yeah.
And interesting story. So in December is when the first time I did it, early December.
Yep.
And in that month, pickleball became the most popular sport in America. So I'm pretty sure it was me that put it over the top. I was the one that made it go to number one.
And everybody followed.
Yeah. So now it's number one, and that's thanks to me.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I know when we always talk about our health, right? About a little bit of everything in our life. And most of the times we're like, I'm just going to think about working out this month,
Yeah. But
you actually took the leap and started. So let me just ask, because we've talked about it a little bit before on this podcast, as far as I feel like there's three groups of people with pickleball. I feel like everybody's heard about it, right? They have a cousin, brother, grandpa, everything, as far as that plays the game, but they don't know a lot about it. Then you have people that are kind of in that beginning stage, and then you have people that are kind of they're all in, competitive, challenge play, getting really serious. So what helped you to kind of get over that? Where did you begin? To start? So
I had heard a lot of people talk about the plaza here in Vegas, and on the roof, kind of where their pool is, they've got all these pickleball courts set up, super nice facility. And every Saturday they'll do a beginner seminar and an intermediate seminar. So I just started at that beginning seminar. And, whenever you try something new, you're nervous about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But they were super great at the plaza. And this is something I discovered that I really appreciate about pickleball is the culture is very welcoming of beginners. You think, it's a competitive sport, and is it going to be cutthroat? Am I going to be embarrassed that I'm so bad?
Yeah.
But really, I found the people in general are really welcoming. And so when I start to play a game, I'll say, hey, I'm a beginner. If you have any tips for me, let me know.
Yeah.
And people will give you good tips, and they won't, if you cause them to lose, they don't get overly upset. It's so I've really just enjoyed not just the game itself, but the culture around it. I think is really welcoming and friendly, and it's all about fun. It's all about fun.
For sure. And I think that's what's at the core of it, right? I think that's a big reason why we, I guess backing up with Sport Court in our company, I think that's what helps drive our business is everybody thinks they're still going pro, right? Like when you're a dad and you have a kid, you're like, oh, he's going to go pro. I got to invest a lot of money, a lot of time. They got to play club, right? And then as you get a little bit older, you're like, or you've played sports and then you're like, you know what? I'm probably not going to be going pro, right? So I think that's what's kind of cool about pickleball is you're right. At the core of it, it's fun. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely the competitive side, but you can we were talking about it at lunch earlier, you can kind of pick and choose kind of what level you want to do, right? Where you want, there's open play, which is kind of a mix of mix of everyone, mix of gender, everything, like all age, everything. Like there's no kind of like stereotype as far as like this is who plays pickleball, which is really cool. And then on the challenge court, yes, that's where you might get it can get a little more testy, but for the most part, it's still fun. And I think there's a lot of respect that people have when you play. So I actually, when I started at the same thing, I started to begin play. I got a coach, or like kind of like a mentor that gave me some lessons, which helped a lot. But same thing, I went over to the Plaza. It was like on a Saturday, so I'm sure it's the same thing. And it was just like, how long is it? Is it an hour and a half?
Yeah, I think this. I think the seminars are half an hour, but then they take all the people who came and pair them up and let them play with each other, and then give them watch them play and give them tips for the second. So it's an hour, but it's split that way. That's
what I loved about it is they would give you tips, right? So Steve Cole, who was the same, is kind of a local pro here in Vegas. He's the same one that was actually kind of running it back then too when I started. But I loved it too because it was like they would show you a technique, right? Like, hey, this is where you should be positioning, or this is how you should dink, or whatever it was. And then we got to like actually alternate and kind of, really then practice the skill.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that kind of how, is it similar
and it's
to how
still,
they do it?
It was still Steve. I took my intermediate from Steve Cole as well, and he, oh my gosh, he taught me so much in just that session. I can't even remember it all, but it was all really good stuff. And he's pretty humble about it, but I've learned that he's won like 5 national championships, and like he's actually way up there in pickleball land.
He's kind of like, like Wayne Newton's Mr. Las Vegas. He's kind of like Mr. Pickleball,
Mr. Pickleball
of Vegas. I feel like,
yeah.
I mean, everybody definitely knows Steve, and actually just yesterday, I feel like I've kind of plateaued with where I'm at on the level that I'm playing, and so I'm like, I need more lessons. I got to call Steve. So I literally did a lesson with him yesterday. And same thing though, it's like, okay, I'm not going to have another lesson for like 2 weeks, but I took everything that he showed me, and this is even after playing like for 2 years, and he's showing me just some of the basics, and I'm like, oh, wow, like I didn't think, like he was showing me yesterday. So in my mind, I'm like, stay out of the kitchen. No one goes in the kitchen, right? He's like, Miles, you need to pivot into the kitchen. Like when somebody's dinking the ball right across the net, like when it bounces in the kitchen, even when it used to bounce in the kitchen, I'd still be reaching, still be like kind of like, and then you're off balance. So he was showing me, like, because I played a lot of basketball growing up, right? So he would teach me, just like in basketball, you have one foot that you pivot, but every time that you hit the ball, like anytime it goes in the kitchen, and I didn't know this is what I learned. You don't have to wait till the ball bounces in the kitchen. You can actually step into the kitchen before the ball even comes into the kitchen.
Before it bounces?
Before it bounces. Now, if it's a volley and you take it out of the air, then yes, the point's over. It's their point. You can't take it out of the air.
So if it's going to land in the kitchen.
Yeah, so even if I don't know if it's going to land in the kitchen,
Okay.
you can actually step into the kitchen.
Wow.
Somebody might fact check me on this, but they came from Steve. But you can actually, so I would have one foot, you know how both feet are at the kitchen? You'd have one foot, and then you'd pivot one into the kitchen, and then you pivot back out of it. So it can't hit you while you're in the kitchen, and you can't volley or take it out of the air in the kitchen, but you can pivot. So I was doing a lot of pivoting in and out of the kitchen.
I really like the pivot thing because what that does is it allows you to know where the line, your 1 foot's outside, so you know if you pivot back, you're back out.
It was huge for me. It was huge for me, and I kept wondering, because I'm like 6 feet, 6'1". I kept wondering why I was always off balance every time, because I would be reaching, and you know how it is when you reach for a ball,
that same thing,
or then you're trying to hit the next return shot, and then you're really off balance. So he talked a lot about footwork, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. And with the playing basketball, I'm like, this is great. So anyway, I guess I kind of went on a tangent there, but it's just that's what I love is like Steve's great. He's over there, Where? Let me ask you this: is it every Saturday, or like if somebody wanted to sign up? Right, they're a beginner. Because is it for beginners only, or is it a mix of people?
Every Saturday, as I understand it, and again, fact checking. I'm pretty sure that the beginning seminar is at 8:30 or 8:30, and then the intermediate is at 9:30.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's like that. It might be 9:30 and 10:30, but I think because I've been there early and they've already.
Where would they go? Where would our listeners go to like get that information? Is it just at the Plaza Hotel?
The Plaza has a pickleball page. I don't know the URL off the top of my head. Being a web guy, I'll say it's not that great, and it's a little bit hard to understand when
Yeah.
the times actually are, because you would want like a calendar more like it's just, but it just says Saturdays at 8:30 or something
Yeah.
like that. But you can kind of get there, and most of the time it's the same. I ran into a little bit of trouble over the holidays because I couldn't figure out if they were doing. One of the things I like to play there is what's called a round robin,
Okay.
where you just play as a partner with everybody. So let's say there's 8 total people, you're going to play once with everybody.
Okay.
The reason I like that is because if you're a beginner, you don't feel bad if you mess up somebody's game, because you're going to mess up everybody's game.
Yeah.
You're going to play once with everybody, so
Yeah.
everybody has to play with every other partner, and that makes it really fair.
Yeah.
And then I think they just award. There is actually a winner, and I discovered there's even a medal
Oh, wow.
that they give to the winner, and the winner would just be whoever has the most total points.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really fun, and so I sometimes go try to do the seminar and then join the round robin.
No, that's awesome. In fact, so I signed up one time for the city of Las Vegas, right? I don't know if you knew this, but they have leagues for beginner, intermediate, and
I'd
advanced.
like to try that. That sounds
And what's
fun.
really cool, that's what reminded me of it when you said kind of the round robin kind of similar format, is because you actually rotate each week. I don't know if you play with everybody I say that because I signed up for it and then I broke a rib riding a dirt bike, and then I tried to play it with a broken rib, and my wife
I
was
thought
mad.
you were going to say that you broke your rib
No.
getting hit by a pickleball, and I'm like, wow, that must have been a
that
smasher
would
of a shot.
Yeah, I was like diving for a ball, right? No, like my wife was pretty mad because I'm like, I literally had a broken rib, and I'm like, honey, I think I can still play. And then I'm like, I can't breathe. I'm gonna not play right now.
Yeah.
So I started to play in the league. But what was cool is that very thing, right? Like, it's a point system, so you kind of play. You alternate and you pick the level that you play on, but it's just City of Las Vegas website. But you can literally sign up for a league. They have kids leagues now. They have like adult leagues, so it's really fun. Anyway,
Cool.
that's a really cool
Okay,
place
well,
to
I'll
kind of
try that next.
Yeah, but I like that they do the round robin still, right, at there. And yeah, so you can find it on the website, and I think you do have it's free, but you do still have to sign up, correct?
Yeah, the seminars are free.
Okay, the instruction, like this instruction side of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are free. You can sign up when you show up, though.
Okay. Because I remember they got really full when I was trying to do it, so
really?
it just, I guess it
Okay,
just
I haven't
depends.
seen that yet.
Yeah,
but
okay.
But yeah, those are free, and then the round robin costs $10
Okay,
because that's kind of more organized, and they got to pay for the medal.
yeah.
So
So how has it been for you? Like, I mean, when you play, like, what do you love most about it?
it turned out to be the perfect thing, because being older, not in as good a shape as I once was, I couldn't play something like tennis anymore, or I could play maybe half-court basketball, but full-court it's just too. I just can't.
Yeah.
I could do it, but I'm going to wind up getting injured.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have been super happy with it, because it's just the right amount of exercise.
Yeah.
It works your legs a lot, your thighs. And unfortunately for me, it works my back muscles, which is not good, because you don't want to be bending over for the
Yeah.
ball like that. You're
Yeah.
supposed to be bending your legs and really control. So if my back hurts, I know I didn't do it right. But so you get a lot of really good muscle activity. You're working every muscle, because you're twisting arms, legs,
Yeah.
and you get winded, but not to the point of, oh my gosh, I'm going to die, because you're
Yeah.
covering a decent size area, but it's not like covering, like you were talking to me earlier about singles pickleball,
man,
and I was
that's
like, wow,
like-
no.
That's like next level.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
playing, me and my friend Mac, we played together quite a bit. And, we'll both play on the challenge courts and things like that. However, there was a guy there at Sunset Park. This was like a few days ago. And we didn't have a fourth, but this guy was like a 5-0 player, right? And he plays a lot of singles. Me and him were both playing this guy, right? I mean, he was running like a dog, but he was still getting a lot of the balls. Like,
Wow.
I'm going to say it, even though I'm embarrassed. We played 4 games. We won 3, but he actually did beat us 1 game. Like, he's like, I mean, but he was
Wow.
all over the court. Like, I mean, if you didn't put it perfectly, he was like slamming it. But yes, singles. And one thing that I remember was singles, that when I had my instructor, Bill, he would always say they are 2 different games, right? As far as where you're positioned,
Yeah.
strategically where you'd stand, Like, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of carryover, but yes, singles is like next level.
Yeah,
running.
I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure. But doubles is perfectly reasonable, I think, for just about any age. I mean, obviously every age and ability is going to have different ability to cover the court, but because it's so much played up at the kitchen, you have a lot of the time where you aren't running, but you do get enough running in that in terms of exercise. And I think it's great.
Yeah.
And like I said about the community, people are really welcoming, which I really appreciate. You don't, whenever you start something, like I said, you're nervous, but if people welcome you in, it's just really good people.
Yeah.
That I've met so far, at least.
Like the social aspect of it.
Yeah, the social aspect of it.
Yeah. No, I said this to my wife the other day. I'm like, I was just throwing a pity party for myself, right? Because with our business, we stay really busy. And outside of that, I was like, honey, I don't know that I have a lot of friends. And then I'm like, no, I actually have a lot of friends, because I started to think about my pickleball friends, right? I'm like on 3 different group texts. I'm like, those are my friends.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. Like, I actually do have a lot of friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's.
Well, next time you're feeling that, I'll call you.
I know.
I'm your friend.
So I will be fully transparent. When you said in our opening, like of our mastermind group that we're in, when you said your opening that you had went and played pickleball, I'm like, I talk about pickleball every month in my intro, and I feel like a bad friend. I'm like, he had to go out on his own. I could have taken him. I could have been a friend. I could have been a pickleball friend.
Well, I got a rain check. You said you're gonna play with me, so you can teach me some tricks and stuff.
Yes, we're gonna go over to Sunset Park and just because you've played. Is it Plaza? You played all of your plays
so
at
far.
Plaza. Okay. Yeah, and we were kind of talking about this, right? If you go somewhere else that's not like a structured class or things like that, like what is it like? It's just like you said. I feel like it's the same kind of like welcoming, and
that's great.
People are like, hey, like they're
really
willing
great
to show you things. And now, challenge court, you can, you do run into people that are like, they still think they're going to go pro. But as far as like open play, people are really, and it's just kind of a mix of all ages. And I know you had mentioned, this stood out to me. You're like, well, I don't want to just show up somewhere alone, because I feel like most people show up with somebody, which I actually, when I go to these other places like Durango or Sunset, I would say it's actually the opposite from what I see. Unless somebody's very, very serious about pickleball and they're like, look, this is my partner. We're going to enter a tournament. We really need to play together. I actually see a lot of people where they are. Most of the time I show up on my own, just put down my paddle. So, yeah, I mean. But
speaking of, I brought my paddle.
Yes.
I wanted to get your opinion on, is this a good one? Would this intimidate people if I put this paddle out?
Well, if you go like this and you act like you're going to strike them. No. So I will say I am not the expert with paddles. All I can say is this. I notice people's paddles, and there's a kind of a group of 4 guys that I play with all the time, and I notice they all have this paddle, the Premier.
Ooh, okay.
So I think it's it's an Onyx, right? Mm-hmm. From what I hear, this is just the feedback that I hear, is it's kind of that happy medium between, some paddles have a lot more like strike to it when you hit it, but then you also have to have the soft game with it, with like the dink. So I am not going to say I'm an expert with paddles. Now, if as far as expert in pickleball construction, yes, I'm an expert. But yes, the paddle I don't know as much, but I do know a lot of people use this paddle. Like it's got a good handle, and I actually use Paddle Tech, but I think the only reason why is because it's the paddle that has just a big P on it. I think it's just because it's the paddle I've always played with, but it tends to be a little bit better for the soft game. Like it doesn't like pop as much off the paddle. So I'm the first to say my strong point is not driving the ball. It's probably more, I'm more comfortable at the net dinking. So that's why I kind of like this paddle. But I am looking to venture out and try another paddle. There's actually a place here in Vegas that will demo paddles. So I know like some of these instructors will have paddles that you can demo. Are you familiar with this place? It's called Game Set Match. And it's in, it's close to like Fort Apache and the 215. It's right there in Summerlin, right off the 215. But it's kind of a tennis / pickleball store. So I was like gonna play. Well, I know this because my friend Mac was like, meet me at Sunset Park. It was like 2:00 in the day, and I'm like, good. I have my pickleball bag. I have everything. And then I look in my pickleball bag, and I'm like, I have my paddle, but I don't have my shoes. And I had like dress shoes on. So I'm like, I got to buy some shoes. So I went over there. They had all these, because it's hard. Believe it or not, most of these sporting goods stores, they don't have like shoes, like a lot of tennis or pickleball.
Really?
So yeah, this is actually specific.
Does pickleball have its own shoe?
It's really just the same shoe as tennis. It's just it is a wider, because you're going a lot side to side. And, because I always just wear running shoes. Well, running's designed to just go straight, right? They're narrow and you go straight. The tennis shoes, they call them court shoes, which is just kind of so that I guess tennis and pickleball kind of fall for the most part under that same umbrella, but they're just a little bit wider. So you have more of a flat, you feel more stable. And it's just wider than like a running shoe. So anyway, I know that because I had to go buy shoes. I'm like, I need shoes. But it got me thinking about the paddle. Like I want to go try to demo some, right? Like, like just you can check them out and demo them. So I thought that'd be pretty cool. So.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So speaking of the whole culture, I was just curious, like what happens when you build a pickleball court for somebody? What happens after that? Like, what are the people? Does it that same kind of like? Does it draw in the neighbors? Does it create this kind of whole world around itself? Or what happens once the court is done?
This is what I've noticed the most. So my last house, I had a court that I put a court in, and then it took me a little while to get my court in. Like the shoemakers' kids have no shoes, right? Yep. We didn't have a court. My kids would remind me all the time, like, Dad, we don't have a court. You build courts. So I will say this. I've had my court in. I'm not totally complete with it, but I've had my court in for a few months now. And I will say, like, literally my kids were out last night in the rain playing on the court. That's awesome. All the neighborhood kids. There's people that live near me and some of my neighbors. They have a lot cooler yards, a lot cooler, like, I'm sure they invested a lot more than I did for my backyard. But I will tell you the thing, it's that I have a court. So when a lot of people have pools, but not everybody has a court. So it is... And by far the number one, I guess to answer your question, by far the number one thing that I hear from my customers and that I've experienced firsthand is your house is the hangout house. It's where everybody wants to be. And I think particularly with pickleball, like the guys I play with all the time are like, Miles, when is your court going to be done? Because what happens is pickleball is exploding at the seams. Yeah. So when you go to, I used to go to Sunset Park and I'm like, they have, 24 or 30 courts. And I'm like, there's always some open courts, right? Always enough courts. I went there over the holiday, like you couldn't even get on a court. All 30 of them are full. Wow. So I think it's that whole thing too, especially when you start wanting, like I'm definitely competitive. I love the fun side of it and the social side of it, but I'm also competitive. I grew up with three brothers, we all 2-on-2 everything, beating each other up over everything, right? So I'm competitive. So it's like, it's also nice because I think what I'm the most excited about when I've seen other people that we built courts for is now I'm not standing at a public court waiting to get on the court, waiting to play, hoping I find the partner that I want to play with. I can literally call my, whatever it's 3 or 5 other friends. We're hanging out. If you're waiting, you can, just have a soda, have some food, hang out by a fire pit, have some chairs. Like now it's kind of just like you can really just like you're not standing waiting. I see it all the time. Like people will have a court in the middle of their neighborhood, whether it's basketball, pickleball, whatever, and they'll say, Miles, guess how many times we've been to the court? They're like, never. Because we have to load up our kids or we have to get in the car, drive down the street. We don't know who's going to be at the court. There's something about walking out in your back door and having a pickleball court. Yeah. It's like, I think it's the coolest thing ever. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I don't know. I know. Yeah. So in fact, I told my wife that when we lived at our last house, I grew up playing basketball. It's all I love to play. And my friends are always like, Miles, let's play pickleball on your court. I'm like, it's not regulation. How can we play on this court? It's not regulation. And so I told my wife, honey, should we move so we can put in a regulation pickleball court? And it's like, but I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to like finish our court. So
yeah, it makes an amazing difference. Similar when I was growing up, we had a cul-de-sac turnaround with real nice, smooth asphalt. And so my dad put up a sweet basketball hoop that was like 4 poles coming out like over the top, like really top notch. Like he did this himself and had the things welded, and so it was an amazing hoop. But then we took traffic paint and painted like the key, and we painted every 3 feet would be like 6-foot circle, 9-foot circle. So
was this on your driveway or on the street?
On the street.
Oh, I love it.
Like we were at the end of a cul-de-sac. Like no one really cared. But same thing, like all the kids would come over and play in the neighborhood to play on that court because the court itself was so good. Yes. And so much fun. And, there's a safety factor of not running into the garage door, for
Yes.
example, like that the hoop comes out over the top of the asphalt,
Yeah.
things like that. So having a true regulation quality court, and then it was the hangout house, to the point where my dad had to build his own street light to put up over there wasn't a street light, so we built our own street light to hang over the court because everyone wanted to play at night.
And that's the thing,
just
is like
nonstop.
And that's why sport court originated in the first place, right? Like, I grew up on the same court. We literally had a station wagon. I have 5 brothers and sisters. My dad bought a hoop at like Walmart. He strapped it to, I think, the top or the bottom of a basketball pole to the bottom of the car, stuck it in the driveway. I mean, it was just a slab of concrete, but we played every single day almost, like, with my friends, and is where everybody wanted to be, So it's like, and that's what's cool. Like, even now, my brothers are coming in town this weekend, right? We're going to play pickleball, right, on my court. Like, we don't have to see if the availability of courts. There is more demand than what there is courts.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is it's just like, man, we can do it in the comfort of our own backyard. But you're right. It's like, when you can have, and I think why sport court has become so popular too is, I grew up on the same court you did, right? Just slab of concrete, maybe stripe some lines. But when you have color and safety and, like, logos and lighting, and I mean, I even put speakers around my court. I mean, it's just like, it's a whole other level.
And there's a whole thing to be said for the right surface, because if you are just playing on some random slab that can have dirt on it, and people are going to get hurt anyway, but they're less likely to get hurt in a scenario where they have a proper surface.
Yes, and I think that's the thing, is sometimes I've even seen people. There's a lot of people that'll be like a do-it-yourself, right? And I get it, right? Like, I just did my own yard, and the budget's always ×2 of what I originally thought it was going to be, right? However, I'll have people. We know our courts are not for everyone, but if somebody values that the court will look seamless, that it will look beautiful, especially people that are competitive. A lot of people think it's just a slab of concrete and it's just like and then it's a net.
Yeah.
It's not. It's everything from the concrete, the slope, the finish, the anchors. Like, literally, I had everything placed down to the inch because everything comes into play. Like, I want it to be safe. I want my kids to be able to ride or cruise around the court. I need the net to be regulation. I need the slope, the finish, the look, how it's going to last. And a lot of times what people don't think about too is, like, how's it going to play, right? Like, how's it going to feel? Easier on the knees, easier on the ankles. I can play twice as long instead of, like, playing just on,
sure.
I mean, we do all surfaces, but sometimes playing on painted concrete is not, I mean, my knees are swollen, my back is sore, right? So for people that want kind of the luxury of having like a indoor gym out their back door, it's kind of that same thing, which is really cool.
I'll tell you another story about growing up and I'll tie it into something I really loved about when I learned about pickleball.
Yeah.
And you've probably talked about this on your podcast before, but my friends and I would get together and we would invent games all the time, physical games, throw something at something, loop something, make something land in something. Like, we were just always inventing games. And one of the things I loved when I learned about pickleball was it's originated, a bunch of kids had a badminton court, I think it was.
Yes.
And the father was just, they kept asking him, can you put the net up? Can you put the net up? And he wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And he says, like, just go figure it out, right? So they got a wiffle ball.
Yes.
And started playing over this badminton net.
Yeah.
So I just love the fact that the whole thing was invented in the way that I used to play when I was a kid. It was and now it's become the number one sport in America. Like, from just something like we would have invented in our yard.
Yeah, totally.
Then they just totally invented it, and now it's to the point where the pole has to be the right size and the slope down the middle has to be right, and all
36 inches on the end, 34 inches in the middle. Yes. But you're right. It is just something
that's
like
a cool story.
invent.
Like, I love the origin story.
Totally.
Of it.
That's how we were. We just lived on the streets and under the street lights, and you just invented cool games.
Exactly.
But I'm glad that you brought that up. Like, and in all fairness, so it didn't become the most popular sport in the country until started playing.
I played,
for the record,
and I put it over the top.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, and this is what I would like to kind of wrap up with is, like, what would you say to, like, the person out there? Because I feel like at this point, almost everybody has either played it or they know someone that, they're either playing it or they know someone that is playing it or is asking them to play it. Like, what would you say to, like, somebody out there that's just like, man, what do I,
But I was in that position. I thought about it, like I said, for many months. I kept bringing it up in our meeting. I'd be like, I'm going to play pickleball. I'm going to play pickleball. Just do it. Because, and it really is just show up somewhere. I think the Plaza is a great place to start because of that beginner seminar, and they're really good people there. So, but just go somewhere and start. And I think you'll find that all the things we've talked about here, the culture, the amount of stress on your body versus how much fun you can have and how much exercise you can get, is a really good balance for a lot of people who are, oh, I want to play, but am I too old? Am I too whatever? Like, that's me. Am I too old? Am I too out of shape? No, definitely not. There's ways.
Yes.
There's ways.
Well, and you're right. I think just like anything, right? It's always the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Once you show up, the overall culture is friendly, engaging, like wants to help. I mean, it's addicting.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of people like you, Miles, that are super welcoming and fun. And
no, that's nice of you. That's nice of you.
It's true.
Yeah.
You're a prototype pickleball player.
Oh,
it's
that's
true.
nice of you to say.
So yeah, the culture is awesome.
Well, I'm going to make it up to you that I wasn't with you when you first showed up to play, that we're going to go to Sunset. I can't wait.
Awesome.
And we're going to we'll run some people. I don't know, but yeah, I think it'll be a good time. So definitely want to thank everyone for joining us on another episode of Pickleball Builders. And for sure, remember to like, comment, and share. And we look forward to talking again.